please. Okay. Come on in. We don't want to be having Eamon shouting. I'm the only one that's good at shouting. Anyway, thank you so much. You know, we were so sure nobody would turn up tonight. The sun and, you know, this weather. And believe it or not, that has already caused a slight problem for the Viking crew because they came to Ireland to shoot bad weather. And all week long, they've been trying to wait till the sun goes down. And indeed, I think right now, there are two of them, after Eamon has told us, of course, the serious part of the evening about the artist's work, because he knows them very well. And I don't suppose you need much of an introduction to Eamon Maillie, a lot of you. 35 years in broadcasting, and in fact making documentaries now. And I didn't know that you made that one about Paisley, which is extraordinary. So Eamon is going to talk to you a little bit about the work, and I think literally the Vikings will raid us in about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I don't know how long you're going to take. There you are, Eamon.
Kibble siad go bhfuil an bhuíochas a go bíb as currá hirtstú an seo trúna Noel agus gnéirí leis an tiispanta is bra an amsere atá an tá sé siliar go bhfuil bonus fear baile clia ag ionchar a television ar an fel. As I say, it's quite obvious this evening, given the predominance or the preeminence of the females here this evening, that the bloody men are all at home looking at football and television. But can't dare, however, they ought to be ashamed of themselves instead of coming out to support the art here. Noel, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm not going to detain you because I know Denise wants to rush home to see bloody football. You know, she's the male supporter, rugby or football supporter in the Farren household, I'm told. The first thing I would like to do is I'd like to salute Brian's presence here, Brian Ferran's presence here, and I genuinely say salute his presence here, and to say how grateful we are to have him, regardless of his art, in our midst, because he's been very, very ill over the last few years. So it's a great pleasure that he's with us tonight and that he's in our midst because he was so ill. So I'd like you to give a boule de boss.
Yay!
I'm fully aware, and I've been around the art scene long enough to know how lonely a vigil making pictures can be, and making any form of art can be. Even writing can be very lonely. I've done a little bit of that in my time, and I continue to do it. But I'm a bit of an historian. I wouldn't say I'm an historian. I'm not an art historian. I don't bullshit about art. I like what I like, and I learn. I have a lust for knowledge. I love knowledge. I don't know what's wrong with the young people nowadays. They don't seem to have the same lust or thirst for knowledge. I love knowledge. I love learning. And I'm a bit of an historian. I think that's a fair comment. I've written a few books about our current history. And I love primary sources. And yesterday evening I had a very joyous couple of hours with Brian and Denise. And I was probing his mind, trying to get behind the man, what motivates them. And I love primary sources. I mean, it's a great privilege for me as a journalist and as an historian to get to the people who are making history or who are part of history. And Noel spoke there about my making the documentaries on Paisley. And you know, I just got him at about time because he's very, very ill at the moment. And it was a real pleasure to get him to open up and to tell me exactly what has been going on in his life. And whatever you think of Paisley, in my opinion, he was party to a political miracle in our midst in Northern Ireland. And one can have their opinions about it, but I'm not here to talk about politics as such. But now Brian, he's been very influenced, of course, by archaeology. I do a lot of digging, and he does a lot of digging. Digging as a source, as a basis for his work. So it's a pleasure to know that the Vikings have arrived yet again in our midst. And we're grateful to the presence of the Vikings here tonight. It's fair to say that I don't understand when artists talk about making pictures. It's the painting, it's the whole thing about the painting. I don't understand that. I do understand words because that's my job. I write and I read an awful lot. And my friend David McKittrick, and fellow writer, he was with me over in East Belfast at the height of the internecine trouble between the Protestants in Clewen Place and the Short Strand. And nightly, literally the kitchen sink was flowing one way or the other from the Protestant area into the Catholic area, and from the Catholic area into the Protestant area. And he went around mumbling into his microphone in Short Strand and Clewen Place. But I remember the next day, I read his account in the paper, and he spoke of Catholics and Protestants live here cheek by jowl as the crowbar flies. What a liar. You see, that's the genius. That's the greatness of writers, just as the greatness of painters. They give you the otherness. They come up with the line to portray, to convey something. Now, I don't, or haven't the capacity as a journalist, as a writer, to understand what they mean, artists, when they talk about it's the painting, it's not the subject matter, it's the painting, etc. But talking about writing, just as I quoted my friend there, David McKittrick, I was reading an article recently about Saatchi, who's been in the news, and it spoke of his gustatory friends. Well, we use that regularly as common parlance in South Armagh to talk about our gustatory friends. Those are the boys and ladies who knock about there and have a drink together down in Donia Nesbitt. Those are your gustatory friends. But the word gustatory, I loved it. I just loved the word gustatory. And funnily enough, I was reading a review of Gully Wells's book, The House in France, recently, and there was a wonderful description of Nigella Dawson's mother, and she likened her to Queen Nefertiti, and she went on to say, she spoke of tiny with inky black hair, flawless cappuccino skin, and bitter chocolate slow eyes. How beautiful, orgasmically beautiful. So that's what excites me as a journalist. I love words, I love playing with words. But there's no point in my talking and bullshitting about art, because I don't know why this man gets such an excitement from painting, from making pictures. So I'm going to ask him. Come here, Brian. Now, you told me many, many things yesterday evening. We'll share this microphone. I want you to speak off. You are the Rose of Tralee this evening. Now, and I'm Uncle Gabo, right? Okay. Now, well, it's true, I should know. But what I wanted to ask you, Brian, essentially is, what is it about making pictures that excites? Speak up now.
No pressure.
Exactly like your chocolate. It's kind of steamy, making pictures. It gets all kinds of adrenaline running around and really making excitement. And when you get a picture right, it's the most exciting thing that you could possibly do.
Now, you made a big confession to me yesterday, Brian, in the course of our conversation. You said you spent 40, 50 years thieving and concealing other people's work. What did you mean by that?
Simply looking at every other exhibition, and I think I've probably looked at more exhibitions than anyone else in Ireland, because for 36 years my job at the Arts Council was to arrange exhibitions, hang exhibitions, evaluate exhibitions, make exhibitions, keep artists happy in one way or another, and do everything possible to make sure that art was really communicating something to the general public. So I looked at and absorbed everything that was coming past the office, the gallery, the space, and took the secrets home and applied them to my own canvases.
It was Basil Blackshaw who once told me that he steals from good artists and bad artists, but he said, it's what you do with the theft. So you learned what to do with the theft.
Well, this is it.
Could I just ask you about archaeology and the importance of the Vikings and archaeology in your work? Like, you know, when you mention Brian Ferran, people think, oh, that's the man with the wee heads, those wee stone heads. Give us a sense of what that's all about, Brian.
Well, those heads were made by people in Fermanagh from round about the 1st century BC, and they continued making them right up to the beginning of the 20th century. So I was paying homage to their work. These were carved in stone, and I have transmuted them into flat painting, and more and more keep appearing by the year.
Last night you said to me that your work is always work in progress. What did you mean by that? Unfinished?
Absolutely. I mean, until you die, you keep wanting to make a change, add something, subtract something, give something new or different to what you made even 40 years beforehand.
John Hume would call that an iterative process, a process leading on to a process which leads on to a process. Brian,
What's wrong with that?
there's nothing wrong with it. I didn't say there's nothing wrong with it. So Brian, where do you think you're going? This is your second coming. Matisse had his second coming. Bobby Bala has had his second coming, and we're very glad that you're here as well. Bobby, you had a bit of a tough time, and we're glad to see you here, and you're old friends for a long time. But what comes next, Brian? I mean, is the next picture the most important picture you ever painted?
Well, Bobby and I could walk across this carpet maybe 6 inches above the floor and convince you that we have something very, very special. We're alive and like Matisse, making pictures in a second life. I mean, Matisse, in wartime, France had the same operation that I had in Belfast some 6 years ago. And after his, he lived for another 11 years and made some of his best works. So I keep hoping.
Tell me this, Brian. How lonely a vigil is it being a painter? I put that to William Crozier, the late William Crozier, and he said, that's a good question. Nobody knows how lonely it is. Is it a lonely occupation?
Not at all. It's, I mean, the fellowship of artists is such that it is not at all lonely, that you talk to your friends and fellow
But you
artists.
married an artist, you had a bit of advantage, didn't you?
Yeah, so I have it day and night.
Day and night.
I think we'll leave it there, Brian.
Yes,
I don't want to detain you any longer. I want to say you're very welcome, Denise. We're glad you're with us, and we're glad that Brian has made a full recovery and that Bobby has made a full recovery, and I hope to God anybody else who was ill has made a full recovery. And as I said, I'm glad that the Vikings are here, and good luck, lads, and I hope this weather obtains. I don't care how long you're here. The longer you're here, the more you will spend, and that's what we want in this economy. Thank you very much indeed. So, I'm going to do this. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Very good. Carmina Margaret, fantastic. Now, just as a little bit of a flippancy, as I said, after all that serious stuff, I'm sure the boys won't mind from the Vikings calling it a little flippancy. We have here a bearded guy. All you girls watch. Clive Standen, and Clive, you played Rollo, is that right? In you can tell him about that. But and I wasn't just listening or anything like that when I said that. But I believe you also were in Camelot.
I was, yes.
And what did you play there?
I played Sir Gawain.
Oh, that's right. He was kind of fairly well known. And Alexander over here, Ludwig. Originally from Canada. This guy, by the way, was born on an army base in Northern Ireland.
Hollywood.
Hollywood. In Hollywood.
You were a son of a spy!
Hollywood and County Down, yeah. The other chap here is from Vancouver, and of course he, I think you might recognize him in Camelot. No, you were
Camelot, Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
Oh no, the Hunger Games. See that one? And it is absolutely true, you know. We can hang on to these guys, and Catherine, who is meant to be here, and she's overshooting.
She's had a crazy, crazy day at set, so she's still there. I got out after a clean little
tell them
blood
about
technique.
it here.
She's still there.
Yeah, tell them about it. I don't know if that's just
Yeah, Catherine was really, really excited to come tonight, but she, as our schedule always changes, she's still on set. I mean, I just kind of came straight from set and got rid of my scars and my blood and the guts and things I had all over me, and she's still there right in the thick of it. But I think it's fantastic, this exhibition, because Vikings has been a part of my life for 3 years now, and Alexander 2 years. And as soon as I got the part, I've started to realise that we don't really know that much about Vikings, and especially how we've all been brought up in schools to believe that they're warmongering, raping, pillaging marauders that came across the sea with their horned helmets and decimated everything in front of them. Of course they did some questionable things, but there's so much more to them. You know, they're market traders, they were colonists, and they were the Da Vinci's of their day, as far as I'm concerned. And just looking around at the pictures I see when we've got the moon and the sun. The Vikings started off believing that, I mean, my character has tattoos on his arms of two ravenous wolves chasing the sun and the moon, Hati and Skoll. And the pagans believed that that's what changed night to day, is that the ravenous wolves, you know, running through the skies, chasing the sun and the moon. But as time went on and Christianity started to take over, then they did change, and they developed ways of travelling west across the sea with the squasherboard and the sunstone, which quite recently in the papers they've actually discovered the first ever sunstone. And we like to think that we were actually writing about it before it came out. But you can see evidence of that in all these pictures and things, and it really brings that kind of that life of just more than barbarians, more than, you know, numbskull, you know, marauders from the east. So I think this is a fantastic exhibition, and I find it really inspiring. And it's great to be in Dublin and to have Vikings kind of carrying on. It's taken over my life.
Alexander.
I would also, first off, like to thank Noel for putting on just an exceptional exhibition. Thank you so much for having us. I'm so happy to be here in front of all of you. And Brian, I've never seen Viking-inspired art in my life, and I think this is just unbelievable. And it's totally just opened my eyes. I'd like to think of myself as cultured, but I've never seen anything like this in my life, and I don't know nearly enough as I'd like. So thank you for showing us this. This is unbelievable. So I really do. And one thing we do pride ourselves on the show we do, and I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, it's just starting in Dublin, so it's very new here, but Clive is one of our stars, and he's the man on the show. But we really pride ourselves on being historically accurate and really following that line. It's so interesting being able to read and see these photos and see just where our show is going to go. And it is incredible, and I'm really happy to be here in front of all of you. And this is unbelievable work, Brian. Thank you.
Oh,
it's officially open, yes. And the exhibition is officially open, yes.
So we promised you the Vikings, and funny enough, actually, it's so true what you said, by the way, because Brian was talking to me the other day about where he found most of his inspiration, funny enough, in Normandy, where you said the navigation skills were all the heritage museums there, in fact, were able to show a lot of that. And indeed, when you look at the colour, that's what I think is amazing, is that, you know, those brightly coloured ships and everything, which we all feared, you know, they were, by the way, we have the wonderful Mexican ambassador here. Your Excellency, you're very welcome. But sometimes, you know, the colour that we've inherited, Mexicans too, that raw, beautiful brightness. I mean, who else does it better than Brian Farren?
And Brian, you should know this, that Clive's character actually does become the Duke of Normandy.
I just wrecked the show for you.
Even though he was born in Northern Ireland.
Exactly, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
No
great.
horns.
But thank you, and I hope you invest in some of his paintings, because we call them gilt age investments. And, we were talking here about a few people. Robert, I know where he is, and Brian, and I don't know, I should say it, but 8 weeks ago, I think less, I had a stroke. And actually, we've all been going through quite a few hairy moments in our life. But we've a lot more to play for, and Brian Ferran, you certainly seem to have a lot more to play for. So that's great.